Hi everyone, welcome to week 14, and this is Monday 11/9 to Friday, November 13th, Friday the 13th. And so this week there is no homeroom on Wednesday because it is Veterans Day. So you take a day off on Wednesday, and there won't be any classes, and obviously there already isn't. But just know that you should celebrate Veterans Day on that Wednesday coming up. Okay, so a couple of assignments coming up this week, and I'm going to be talking to you about assignment number one, which is the child labor web quest for week 14. All right, so to complete the web quest, there's actually several things you need to do. So let's go ahead and go to that assignment. So the web quest is here, and let's go right into that assignment. Let's see. And you'll be able to do a couple things with this, okay? All right, so the web quest is going to be looking at several different links, and you're going to be able to choose from several different web sources talking about three types of child laborers. So you're only going to need to choose one to research. So there's three. There's the factory worker children. There are minors, okay? So not minors under the age, but people that actually mine coal. And so this is actually going to be another example you can choose from. So child minors. And then of course there's the newsboys, okay? And though there's actually a popular musical called Newsies, it's actually a little bit about how they kind of stage a riot from the Newsies. They're also called Newsies or newsboys. So you'll be looking at these links, and I'm going to be talking about certain things about this. We're also going to be talking a little bit about a Wikipedia source that's actually linked here. You just have to be careful with it. Don't use the Wikipedia itself. You're going to be losing the references, and I'm going to show you how to do that. All right. So let's go to the form, and that's sorry, that's this form here on the bottom. So as you go to this form here, okay, we're going to be looking at several questions, and the directions are here, okay? And we're going to be looking really at what life was like for people your age. So by the age of 16 or 17, kids have been working for maybe 8 or 9 years in these factories, and it's been a pretty long, grueling process. There's actually several things that happens to them. And so was it a perfect life? No, but it was their life. And so you're going to be looking at, again, a factory working child, a kid that worked at a mill worker or as a mine worker or a miner, or a newsboy. Okay. And so there's different resources for each of those. Okay. So if you want to just kind of start on a general idea of what child workers did, you could actually look at these. Okay. And so this is just a good place to start. There's a lot of primary sources, there's a lot of general sources, and remembering back to what the Ed puzzle was telling you, there it's so well documented what happened in this time period for these children that we're kind of going back and we're looking at that, okay? And we're going to be looking at it because child labor still exists today. It's not that it's gone away. It's just now it's in a different place, and it's kind of like a little bit less, like it's kind of frowned upon, but people still do it. And so we're going to be looking at kind of the general idea of this, and then you're going to choose the factory worker, the miner, or the newsboy. And so these are actually very specific ideas that kind of help you with just what happened to these children. Okay, so there's one about like child slaves, and then the British Industrial Revolution, kind of very similar to the sources that we saw in the Ed puzzle. And then, of course, there's actually more information here. And then there's a whole book. Okay, there's a whole book that actually talks about child workers during factories, and here's the link for that. All right, and so the miners actually has a few less resources, but there is uh, links to the daily life, industrial revolution, and coal miner workers. Make sure you check these resources and make sure that they're actually working properly. Miss Orteg and I myself already kind of looked at those just to make sure that you have the right sources. But you might also want to choose if how reliable are these sources. Again, don't forget what we taught you about looking at sourcing and corroboration and making sure the information you get is correct. The last one is going to be about newsboys, and that is a lot of information. They're called newsies, And one of the most famous things that the Newsies did is that they took on a man called Randolph like Hearst, and he was one of the richest men during that time. And the Newsies took him on, and you find out what happened to the strike that was that happened in 1899. There's also this Wikipedia that talks about the Newsy strikes, but we're not going to be looking exactly at the Wikipedia. And let me show you what I mean by that. Okay, so you click on the link to the Wikipedia, and you have all this information about what happens with the strike in 1899, and that's really great because it kind of sums it up for you. But what's really important and what you actually should be using are the references. Okay, so there's actually see also, but there's several references about what happened from newspapers, okay, from City Hall Park, from PDFs from the New York Times. So this is very specific, and the references are excellent. So use these references because there's so many that actually kind of refer back to this day because it made headlines. Okay, it was such a big deal that everybody captured it. Okay, so use this. Don't use this. Use this references. Don't use this. Okay, and that's actually really important. Okay. All right. So looking at the websites, you're going to be very well prepared to kind of answer the questions. You could first, and then as you kind of go along, make sure you kind of take on you do each part. So here you're just going to be writing which one of these three types of laborers did you actually look up? Did you look up the factory mill worker? Did you look at the miner or the newsboy? Okay, so just kind of look that one up and then just and then write the information here, and then you're going to answer all of these questions about what happened to them. And if there was, and the big question at the end, number 7, is did anything change? I mean, think about that, like, because this exists here in the United States. Have you been working in a mine? And, are there laws to protect you right now? So there were different things that actually made this very, very different nowadays. Alright, so the next part is going to be looking at child labor today. And many people are, like, surprised that, like, "Wait, child labor? That it doesn't even exist anymore." Yes, it does. It actually still exists, and it's actually prevalent in a lot of developing countries and a lot of countries that the population itself is just so grown, and there's just so much labor available that it's difficult for the economy to sustain itself without relying on cheaper forms of labor. And so, when we look at child labor today, there are several global issues. So, kind of select one of these. Um, Amnesty International is actually a very popular group. Okay, not to like kind of point to anybody in specific, and also the International Labor Organization. So thinking about like those two groups, and then of course there's are the .orgs, which is actually child labor, stop child labor, and this is very obviously very specific in what it's asking. It's definitely a group that's actually going to be looking at very specific issues to protecting children. So of course that's going to be I'm not going to say biased, but in a way, it is actually trying to tug on some heartstrings. But of course, it also has some very relevant facts. So we want to check those out. And after you kind of look at these sites, again, you're going to have a few more questions to kind of help you think about how you feel about this. Okay, is it okay for kids at 4, 5, or even 8 or 9 years of age to be in factories, uh, earning their keep, doing what they need to kind of help their family just a little bit. Okay, and for those that are working now, several of you, I'm sure, have been like in a position where you have jobs. At 15, 16, I had a job myself and I was pushing carts at the supermarket. So, where's the line drawn? Is it important that we understand the value of work, or are we exploiting these kids? Are we exploiting the teenagers or those that are willing to take less money because, well, this is the first time they're doing it? And so, think about all those questions. And at the end of this, okay, you're going to have a reflection. And the reflection is going to argue whether this is right or wrong. Do you believe child labor is something society should be using? Not depend on, but at least be using. And then what can you do to help children working as child laborers today? Is it something that we should find probably better ground for, better healthcare, that's probably not an issue, but like at least better conditions for these kids, maybe even a little bit better pay, so that maybe in a sense, is that even possible? So think about your argument, and then you can write the sentence frame and put it in the box, please. All right. Hopefully, this is something that's eye opening to you. It is definitely something a lot of teachers at school are very passionate about. And just to have you guys see something that's happening in the world is very exciting. And hopefully, it makes a mark. All right, guys. Thank you for your time. And please do the research and check out what you can find out.